quick introduction to using tkinter for people who are independent and able to look stuff up for themselves. Here's the simplest possible tkinter GUI. If I run it, you'll see what it looks like. Did I run it? Yeah, I did run it. It's a blank form. So you can see what's going on here. I import the stuff I need from the tkinter library. This kind of sets up the application. And then this root.main loop is the thing that starts the form and also starts like an event listening loop. So this is the way that tkinter and all other GUIs are going to work. They're listening for an event. So it's sit there spinning round and round, just waiting for you to click on a button or enter something. So let's look at a slightly more complex example. Let's pick one, but not that complex. This one's interesting because this one I grabbed from this site, tkinter events and bindings, fbot.org, which is typical of tkinter tutorials online in that it's Python 2. So when I run it, it tells me firstly, as you might expect, that the print statement is wrong. So that's easy to fix. But then it also tells you, when we run it again, that there's no module named tkinter because it's capital T. Lowercase t, run it again, and I have that one there. Did that actually work? I didn't see a button. Let's run that again. Might have been a bit premature there. Maybe there's a button hidden somewhere. Anyway, doesn't matter. Because I want to do a different button anyway. So that gives you the basic idea of the things that go into a tkinter app. We see we've got here root equals tk. We've got a root.main loop. Those things are always there. And then we've got some stuff that makes up the components, and we need functions to handle the events. So this one, in theory, when we click this button, goes to this callback. Didn't seem to work, but I'm not too fussed because we have other examples. Now these other examples are, let's go with this one, I think. These other examples, I've got an extra little bit of stuff here. We've still got from tkinter import star. We've still got root equals tk. We've set up a title, that's pretty obvious. And we've still got root.main loop, but it's object oriented. So what it does is it creates an application which is based on this class here. So it creates an application object. It passes this root object through to that when it's created. This runs some initialization, which typically is to set up all of the objects on the form. So labels and buttons, for example. And it's also got if you look at the buttons, this one is set up that when the button is clicked, it goes to self.update counter. So self means it's within the same object, so it goes and runs whatever code is here. So whenever we're referring to the object that we're in, we have to use this self dot in front of it. This one does one other thing as well, is that it's got another class and it creates an object from that class. And the idea of this is a separation of GUI stuff from actual program logic. So it's kind of the simplest possible example of that actually happening. So everything that's down here is just setting up and updating the GUI. Everything that's up here is actually running the program. We should run it, make it actually do something. So when I click the button, adds one. So it's just running that increment counter every time. So this is the function that runs, and it goes from there. There's heaps more that you can look up. For example, this one, it does the same thing. I've still got this from tkinter import whatever. I forget why I've got this import sys in here. I've got a lambda as well in here. Oh, that was just to output to the console. Should be able to do that with just a print statement. Never mind. So yeah, I've got this class which is the application, and so it does main window root. You know, there's a lot of inconsistency about how things are named. So it could be just as easily named this. You know, choose your own adventure in terms of how you name things. And looks like I've kind of grabbed this from somewhere else, to be honest. GUI. This is different, isn't it? Because this is a GUI and this is also stuff which is GUI, so it doesn't explain that very well. This isn't the one I thought it was. Let's get rid of that one. Nope. And the one I wanted to look at was this one. All right, so this one is a radio button example. So I can choose stuff based on a radio button, and you can see obviously an event is firing each time, and that event is updating the choice that they've made. So this is the thing that does the updating here. Same things. Should briefly mention right at the very end here, this line here. Often Python programs are made up of multiple files. There's this special thing that when you run a Python application, there's kind of like a main file, the first one that you run, and it checks to see, this line is checking to see if we are the main file. If it is, it's kind of running, that's the main part of the application. So if you try to accidentally run a file which is supposed to be subsidiary to another, to the main file of the program, it won't work because it won't have this if name equals main and then run all of this kind of stuff. That might get you started. Let's see how you go. If you are able to make a GUI that kind of we can click a button and do some stuff and do some things with radio buttons, then we can start talking a bit more in depth about objects, classes, object-oriented programming.